The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.
The province of Ontario spent almost $200 billion last year on everything from hospitals to teachers to our justice system. In her final report, after a decade in office, did the province's Auditor General find those billions of tax dollars to be wisely spent? We'll ask her tonight. Spoiler alert, not all of it. Then, author David Sax is here on why the pandemic helped confirm to him that the future is analog, if we want it human scale. And a report from Kyiv, Ukraine, on the remarkable resilience of civilians and soldiers there. It's Thursday, December 8th, and that's all tonight on The Agenda. Once a year, Ontario's Auditor General releases a report that usually captures a great deal of attention, and this year is no exception. From running sting operations on casinos to exposing potential postal code discrimination by auto insurance companies, the auditor has been busy trying to determine whether we're getting adequate value for the nearly $200 billion tax dollars the Government of Ontario spends every year. The province's current Auditor General, Bonnie Lysyk, just released her 10th and final annual report, and we're glad she's accepted our invitation to come to our studio and tell us more about what she learned. Great to have you back here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I can't believe it's 10 years since we did our first interview here in the studio.
Yeah, it was the gas plants. That was the first
Yes, it was.
report
Yes,
I
it
tabled.
was. Back in the day. All right, let's go through some of the findings in the immediate term here, and then we'll save the big existential questions for the end, okay?
All right.
You had some of your officials pose as auto insurance purchasers, and you discovered that if you're in London, Ontario, trying to get auto insurance, and you represent this sort of typical demographic, $1,200 for premiums. You go to Brampton, more than $3,000 for premiums. Mm-hmm. What do you infer from that?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to confirm. We'd heard that, so we did that exercise. My staff phoned around. We confirmed it. I think in the report we recommend that that be looked at, that the regulatory authority, the FRSA, take a look and see whether or not there could be discussions with the insurance industry and see whether there could be more equity in the billing.
We've heard this business about postal code discrimination. Do you think that's what's going on here?
You know, I think they use that as a component in determining what premiums will be for people. It's one component of a number of them, but it's probably worthy of a look by the regulator to see, you know, how it's calculated. And there is a new team at FSRA, that a new board, new management team, and they're probably keen to get more of an understanding in that.
I got to ask you about this juicy sting operation that you ran, okay? This is the money laundering with regard to casinos. Tell us what you did.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to verify. So as auditors, we're checking internal controls. So our auditee was the Ontario OLG.
Lottery and gaming.
That's right. And lottery and gaming partner with casino operators. So they basically have privatized sort of the operation of the casinos. And one of the rules is that you do not issue a check at a casino if you don't prove that somebody was actually playing and that there's winnings. And so we tested the internal control by having people go into the casinos and see whether or not they could get a check. And so we did that at one casino. They were fine. They were following the rules.
Which one?
That was
Windsor, I think.
Well, Windsor didn't issue checks, so that's correct. Windsor was fine. There was a smaller one where they did get caught, and there is. So they did get caught. In the other two, they didn't, and checks were issued to them. So it did confirm that in a couple of the bigger casinos, they weren't being as tight in checking to make sure that there was play and that there were winnings that would support a person getting a check. So if you get a check, and you can deposit that check into a bank account, and it's with money that isn't clean money, that cleanses the money, and that's the money laundering exercise.
Yeah, the whole idea here, you're trying to prevent people from bringing outside money in, getting a clean check, basically laundering their money. It could be ill-gotten gains or whatever.
That's correct. And OLG was fine with this. Their board and their management team have concerns around money laundering. So in our report, they responded and they said, you know what, we're going to look and make sure now we have something to discuss with our operators to tighten up the the policy.
Ontario Lottery and Gaming was fine with it. The Premier wasn't. What'd you make of that?
You know, I mean, the Premier spoke and you know, I listened. I listen. I take any time there's comments into account in what we do and how we do it. But I think, you know, money laundering is not a good thing to have. It's not a policy issue. It's against the law. And given our auditee understood right at the beginning it was an audit criteria and we would be testing that, we were right to conduct that exercise and see whether or not they needed to tighten up the controls at the casino operators. Did
the Ontario Provincial Police have a problem with what you did? Because this you would think would be normally in their lane.
Yeah, when they did catch, the casino reported a few people to the OPP, and the OPP investigated and found out that they were actually working with us and checking to see that the internal controls were operating. So they did correspond with me. They said, you know, here's what we found. We did spend some time on this. If we think there's anybody that's associated with this exercise, we won't be investigating. I wrote back and said, thank you very much. If there is somebody that you think could be associated with us, just let us know so we know that, you know, you've been informed by the casino operator as well. So that's how it went.
Let's talk PPE, personal protective equipment. We, of course, ordered hundreds of millions of dollars of it during the worst of COVID. Yeah. Do we know how much of that money was ill-spent?
Yeah, they're right now sitting in inventory at March 31st. There was about $1.5 billion that hadn't been used yet. For the year ended March 31st, 2022, the province had to write off about $66 million that was either obsolete already, that was not of good quality, or damaged. And there is a risk that there will be KN95 masks that are sitting at around $80 million in value that would have to be written off by 2030 if they're not used. So there is, I think, our key message in that audit is that you need to make sure you've got a good inventory system, make sure that that product is being rotated through the hospital system, long-term care, other users, so that at the end of the day, the province does not have to write off more than the $66 million.
You pointed out 94% of urban centers in this province are seeing a decline in green space. Why is that important?
Yeah, I think, I mean, given the push on development and the want to have, you know, more density, you have to take into account how much green space there is, because when there's heavy rainfall, it acts as a sponge. And when it acts as a sponge, there's less potential damage, you know, urban flooding to residential areas. So that just needs to be taken into account. And, people also need to know when they're building houses in more dense areas that they could put in backwater valves during construction. It's about $250. If they decide they want to put it in an existing house, it gets up in value $2,300. And then if you actually get damaged because you don't have that and you have urban flooding, it could cost you about $40,000 in insurance to get it, you know, through your insurance company to get it fixed. So we're pointing all that out mainly from a preventative measure, as well as, you know, people that work in the municipalities aren't operating consistently in the messaging with people of how important backwater valves are.
We have an invasive species problem in this province, and we have a Ministry of Natural Resources that's supposed to do something about it. How are they doing?
Yeah, there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. There's not enough resources, either people or money, dedicated to that. And so there is a situation where invasive species are entering Ontario, and more needs to be done to identify them sooner and put in place measures to prevent further spread.
Now, for example, when you make that recommendation to government, you don't have enough people on this file, you need more people.
Yeah.
Do they listen to you and hire more people?
You know, in the area of environment, it hasn't been the case. We've pointed out in a number of audits where things that need to be done in accordance with legislation aren't getting done because the resources aren't there. I mean, it is a government choice as to where to allocate dollars. This isn't the only area. We do see that with a lot of legislation in Ontario, a lot of promises through that legislation that the resources aren't there, like there isn't sufficient resources available to do everything. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, it is up to government to choose what to do when, but we point out where there are deficiencies in compliance with legislation.
Well, let me follow up on that in another way, because of course your report comes out every year, and it's usually a litany of things that government could be doing better. And then you usually have a checklist saying, you know, we've consulted with the ministry. Here's what they've promised to do. Do you actually go back in subsequent years and see whether or not they've actually fulfilled the recommendations they promised to employ?
We do. When we do a report, we put recommendations out. We incorporate people's responses to those recommendations, and where they've made commitments, 2 years later, we go back and we follow up. We then go back another 3 years for the next 3 years after those 2 years and do continuous follow-up to successively ask the question, how is it going? Are you implementing it? We were very pleased when we saw the 2-year follow-ups from the audits we did 2 years ago, particularly the COVID audits we did. We're seeing high implementation rates of the recommendations.
70%.
Yeah, it's, in one case, I think it's 88% on the one dealing with the emergency management operations. They've done a complete restructuring of that function and really good. And I think they're making improvements in a lot of the areas, and they were making improvements as COVID was progressing.
Shall we get into some of the bigger existential questions now? Your good friend from the Toronto Star, columnist Martin Regcon, who loves to write columns going after you, had this to say. Here we go. But as Bonnie Lysyk winds down her controversial 10-year reign as Ontario's Auditor General, poking and probing the bureaucracy in a perennial quest for publicity, it's worth asking one last time, who audits the auditor? Who watches the watchdog? Do we fully understand her mandate? Does she? Now, I have to confess, he pretty much writes the same thing every year, right? He's got a thing about this. He wants to know whether you're too far out over your skis, as the expression goes, whether, as the Premier's expression goes, you're staying in your lane, or whether mission creep has set in. And I want to play a clip from your news conference last week as to how you responded to that when that issue came up at the time. Sheldon, the clip, if you would.
During my tenure as Auditor General, I have worked with successive minority-majority governments led by different political parties. While governments and political philosophies change, the primary goal of my independent office has been unwavering: to maintain the focus of our work on providing objective, nonpartisan, and fact-based information to all members of the legislature and Ontarians on whether taxpayer money is being well spent.
You hit hard there on the word independent. Mm-hmm. How come?
Oh, it's very important. I mean, all our work is premised on the fact that it's fact-based. We're transparent in the work we do. We publish what we do and how we do it, and to be trusting, have the public trust us, we need to maintain independence. We're nonpartisan. That is a condition of working in our office. I haven't voted. I don't vote, and I think it's important so that people know that they're getting fact-based information without a partisan slant on it. In terms of how we audit and what we audit, we follow CPA standards. We get audited by financial statement auditors. We get inspections by CPA Ontario. We have an internal peer review auditing process in the office where people review others' files. And we also, within the legislative audit community in Canada, we audit attest files in other offices. They audit ours, and we audit VFM in other offices, and they audit our office.
So how come Martin Regcon still writes the same column every year saying who audits the auditor, and do you guys stick to your lane enough?
That's a good question for
Have you taken him out for coffee and tried a charm offensive with him?
I've met Martin maybe once in a handshake in a restaurant, and that's as far as that's gone. But I do respect people have different opinions, and controversy makes things, I suppose, interesting. But I think it's important for the public to understand that we audit according to a methodology that's been in place for probably 25, 30 years. We have good internal quality assurance around what we look at. We have internal discussions about, should we say it this way, should we say it that way, and we question whether we're within our mandate all the time. It's important. And so credibility for us is important so that people can trust our office.
Let me follow up on that, because I think, once upon a time, auditors used to say, we're going to watch how the government spends the money, period, full stop. Mm-hmm. And then in more recent years, well, you tell me if it's a change of philosophy, but the words lately used are, we're going to check value for money.
Right.
You could argue those are two different things. How narrowly or broadly do you think the Auditor General's office should be interpreting its mandate?
You know, the practice of value for money auditing, and it's called many different things. It could be called performance auditing, systems auditing, comprehensive. It's evolved depending on which jurisdiction in Canada you're in. The methodology stemmed from McNedell way back in, I believe it was the 90s, 80s, 90s. And that approach has been consistently applied year over year over year. So the approach is not different. I think issues that we're tackling probably as government becomes more complex, what we're tackling becomes more complex. But we apply auditing procedures the same way that they would have applied auditing procedures quite a few years ago.
Okay, well, let me check on that with you, because you know, we've had casinos in the province for probably over 30 years now.
Yeah.
We weren't running sting operations on casinos 30 years ago. We are now. Does that mean that you're getting out over your skis, as they say?
No, and I, you know, I wouldn't call it a sting operation. I would call it more checking internal controls. And I think the other part of this is more and more government services are getting pushed out for delivery to other third parties. And so, you know, when it was OLG, a casino at OLG that was delivering services, whatever we were auditing at the time of OLG would have been tested. In 2014, we looked at OLG's modernization approach, and we had certain audit criteria, and we executed on those audit criteria. This year, the team sits back and says, where are the risks? And based on a risk assessment, those are the things that we look at. And we know from the Cullen report in British Columbia, and we know from German's report way back, that money laundering was a huge issue in BC, and you know, continues to be an issue. But we know from their work that they've said that has become an issue in Ontario. And so when we met with OLG, and I think my team discussed the criteria, it was one area of interest to look at. So all the audits are risk-based, that are fitted to the period of time when the work is done. And when there's third parties that are involved now, so like OLG is to be the conduct and manager still of gaming in Ontario, our testing of a casino operator's control is like testing an OLG control, because now they're doing that on behalf of OLG.
Do you believe you have all of the legislative authority you need to do your job as well as it needs doing?
I do. I mean, I think we ran into a situation when we audited Laurentian University this year where the university didn't consider itself part of the broader public sector, which it specifically is in legislation, and didn't agree. They were going through a CCA process, so they were getting advice, and the advice to them was do not share information with the audit office. And so that did take us into a situation where we had to test a couple sections of the Act before the courts. Unfortunately, at that point in time, the court didn't support the interpretation of the Act that we were working with, and that has been appealed, and we're awaiting the results of the appeal. But that section that's being looked at guides all of our work in the office, not just Laurentian. So when I say it's important that we be independent and that we have unfettered access to information and people, that will be important on a go-forward basis as to whether or not the office can continue to do I think, the great work it's done over the years on behalf of the legislature and Ontarians. So that is something to watch, I think, and we will continue to, you know, keep our fingers crossed. And if not, I would then be looking to the legislature to, there is a private members bill before the legislature right now that has a suggested wording if we're not successful. And I would hope that the government would be supportive to keep us whole, because the work we did on Laurentian was work that we were requested to do by a committee of the legislature.
I should do a thing here. Let the record show you raised Laurentian. I used to be the chancellor there up until 2020, I think. Once all this CCAA stuff hit the fan, I resigned. You know, ceremonial role, no involvement in any of this kind of business, preside over convocation, that kind of thing. But I should ask the follow-up question. You had to go to the extraordinary length of getting a speaker's warrant in order to get them to release information to you that you were legally entitled to. How do you think the university handled itself during this?
Yeah, I mean, it started I think we were requested to do it. When we couldn't do it, I went back to committee and I said, committee, I'm having some trouble getting access to the information we need to do. Now, it wasn't really an issue of privilege, it was the veil of privilege. So it's like somebody says to you, we can't give you it because it's privileged. And our thought is, well, and the way we've operated through the years is just show us. And if it's privileged, we're not going to make it public because we respect privilege. But by just telling us, we're supposed to trust somebody that they're not hiding something. And so it makes auditing difficult. So we went back to the committee, and the committee was supportive. They tried to get the information from Laurentian themselves directly. Laurentian was pushing back. And they then made a request to the legislature. And it was the legislature that then decided to do the vote and issue the speaker's warrants and to obtain information for the committee. When the committee received the information, they then provided it to us. It's a tool. It's a significant tool, and I extend appreciation to the committee and to the legislature for obtaining the information for us, but it's not a workable solution on an ongoing basis. Up until that point, people have cooperated and we have received information, and so my hope is that was an exceptional case. The difficulty with depending on the legislature or committee to get us information is you still don't have the ability to talk openly with people. You don't have the ability to question the documents openly. So it was one way to get more affirmation that what we were looking at and where we were going with the report was correct. But the ideal situation would still always be working with auditees, cooperating both ways, and obtaining access to information so that we can really do our work quickly, more thoroughly, and provide recommendations to get organizations just to move forward rather than dwelling on the past.
And for the record, you checked 4 other post-secondary institutions in this report. I think it was Algoma, Ontario Tech, geez, I'm going to forget the other 2, Nipissing
and Windsor.
And Windsor. And you found the books all kosher there.
Oh yeah, and they were extremely cooperative. They were very good universities to work with. They understood that they were part of the broader public sector. And we did look at the finances, and they are financially sustainable. There is, a huge dependency, a necessity of dependency on student tuition, foreign student tuitions. But yeah, they've got their paths forward, and they're working away trying to make sure that they'll maintain their financial sustainability.
We're down to our last minute here, and this is your last annual report, right?
Yes, it is.
Your 10 years are up. So I wonder if we could finish by having you tell us what advice you would give to your successor, because you're not allowed to be reappointed, right? It's 10 years and out.
That's correct. That's correct.
What advice would you give your successor?
I would say, you've got to have backbone. You've got to have backbone. You have to be resilient because, and I think you need to get into the topics and understand what you're talking about, understand what everyone is, all these issues that are coming up. And you got to make sure you protect the office's independence, do fact-based audits. We have a great group of people in the office, extremely qualified. That's important to foster and continue. And keep a sense of humor, keep positive. Do not lose your positiveness, because if you lose that, you have nothing, right?
Even when the politicians come after you and say, that auditor's making terrible recommendations, we don't buy this.
That's part of the job. You got to be able to handle that, and you got to be able to accept that not everyone's going to like what you do, but you do it the best you can, and you keep your eye on who you're doing this for, and you're doing it for members of the legislature of all parties, and you're doing it for the citizens of Ontario. And if you keep your eye on that, you feel good at night.
Who was the most secretive, uncooperative premier you had to deal with out of all of them?
You know what? I other than the odd clip where somebody's saying something, I don't think I had bad relationships with people. I think there's probably isolated incidences where the findings of our work maybe hit a soft point. But I don't think I've built my years in this office on creating negative relationships. So I like to think that they would feel the same way, and I'm hopeful that I've created a lot of good relationships and along the way as well. So.
Good luck with whatever comes next.
Well, thank you very much.
That's Bonnie Lysyk, Auditor General of the Province of Ontario. Technology was both a blessing and a curse during the pandemic. It let many carry on work and social interaction via screens, but it also blurred the lines between those as never before. To writer David Sax, the experience underscored what he suspected even before COVID. It's all in his latest book, The Future is Analog: How to Create a More Human World. And David Sax joins us now for more. Welcome back.
Good to be here,
It's great
Steve.
to have you here.
Yeah.
You know, if we did this interview a year ago, I'd be talking to you on a screen. You know that, right?
It would have been a lesser experience.
No kidding, for sure. Okay, let's share an excerpt from the book and then we shall chat. The future, you write, is analog because we are analog. This is what the pandemic taught me. Human beings are not digital. We are not pieces of hardware driven by software. Our destiny is not preordained on some exponential curve. We cannot upload our minds to the cloud and transcend this world. We are flesh and blood creatures, bound by biology and all its quirks, and we experience life in all its richness, risk, beauty, and misery. When we try to replace that reality with a digital facsimile, we are lost. So says David Sax. Let's start with this. Define analog.
Analog is a imperfect term, kind of sweeping, but I would say it's the opposite of digital, right? Digital is everything that requires computers to work. It's the language of computers, binary code, ones and zeros. And analog is everything beyond that, the physical, tactile, human, face-to-face, real world.
Kind of like what we're doing right now.
Exactly. The analog version of this versus what we would have done a year or two ago, the remote version of that, the digital version. Now, you're using digital technology and the cameras and the editing software and the broadcasting of streaming it and putting it on YouTube, but this conversation here is analog. So I say it's an imperfect term because it's never exact in its definition. There's many engineers who've taken umbrage at this in the way I've used it, but I think it's become a pretty common shortcut for not digital over the past decade.
You weighed in on this topic with your previous book, Revenge is Analog. What made you think you had more to say about it?
Well, that book looked at a sort of emerging and somewhat limited phenomenon, right? I was looking at why we were seeing the growth once again of things like independent bookstores, vinyl records, film cameras, paper notebooks, all these objects and spaces that had been sort of predicted to die off, like the dodo bird.
And they didn't.
And they didn't. They actually were growing again, and people couldn't understand why. And so that book really looked at what was happening in those individual areas, but also what sort of linked it together. This book is much broader because the experience we had over the past couple of years of digital living forced upon us by the pandemic, for good reason, right? For the reasons of health and safety and the security of our society and the world. It gave us a much deeper, broader, and more immersive view of what the digital future was going to actually look like, and also where in our lives analog had its value. We never would have considered the value of something like a cocktail party in an analog setting until we experienced the hell of the Zoom cocktail party.
Having said that, this notion clearly was kicking around in your head well before COVID happened, right?
Yeah, I was getting questions when I was giving talks or doing interviews, media interviews, and often there would be this sort of statement at the beginning. Well, it's like, well, we know the future is digital. So, and I was like, whoa, hold on. What do you mean you know the future is digital? What does that statement mean? Well, the world, we're living in a digital world, people will say. It's like, what do you mean? I have a phone, we use computers, but like the world is analog. I'm still flesh and blood here. And I think in our culture, in the media, in the world of business, and I think just in the sort of popular discourse that all of that's fed into, the narrative of Silicon Valley and that assumption that the world is digital and the future is digital and that digital is an inevitability. I see Kevin Kelly's book over there, The Inevitable. I mean, that's the argument of that book, right? That all these technologies sort of coming to define and dominate our lives are inevitable. There is no sort of going toward it. That really seeped into our collective consciousness. And so I was already being asked about this as the guy who's the sort of flag bearer of analog. Well, what do you think about this? What do you think about the future? We know the future is digital. I'm saying, well, hold on. The future of all music was going to be entirely digital, and in many ways it has. We have Spotify and Apple Music and limited streaming, but the biggest and most profitable, fastest growing part of the music business is physical sales of pressed pieces of plastic, right?
And going to concerts. People
And going to concerts.
more than ever now. Yeah.
You know, everything was going to be digital in book publishing because we had the Kindle and we had the Nook and we had the Kobo, and 9 out of 10 books are still sold in paper. And stores like Indigo and independent bookstores like Type here in Toronto and Analog Books in Lethbridge, Alberta, they're growing and expanding and their sales are doing well. So nothing's inevitable, right?
Well, but here's where I come in and say, yes,
Yeah.
but there's something deeply ironic about the fact that you write a book called The Future is Analog. And did you do any interviews in person for this book? No, you didn't. They were all done digitally, right?
Yeah.
All done on screens.
Screens or phones, yep.
How unsatisfying was that?
It was functional. It was effective. I didn't spend a cent on doing research and flying anywhere for this book. And I got the information I needed, but it wasn't satisfying. You know, I got into journalism to see the world and have adventures. And I've done that. I lived in South America as a freelance correspondent. I worked as a travel writer. I've been all over the world writing stories. And for the previous books I've done, I've traveled all over. I mean, for Revenge of Analog, I went to an abandoned film factory in the Italian countryside for 3 days and toured through these massive buildings that were going to be demolished. I've ridden on the back of ATVs through cattle pastures when I've been writing about ranchers. I mean, I've had conversations and adventures in the context of the real world, and all of that filled those pages with not just the words that people said, but the stories and the environment that surrounded them. And this was just Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call, which was quick and efficient and worked, but it was draining. I would do 2 in a row and I was exhausted. 3 and I was a wreck. I was done.
Have you thought about how the book might be different had you actually been able to go into the field and do all these interviews face to face?
Yeah, in some way. I mean, it would have been very different if the government had allowed our borders to be open, I guess, and I had had the wherewithal to sort of go out into the world. But this was written in the heat of the pandemic. And so it is very much a time capsule of that period and what life was like. And I think the unease and the unsatisfying nature of that, the feeling of being trapped at home and only doing things on a screen is kind of essential to what the narrative is, right? In many ways, it's a memoir of not just my pandemic experience, but the experience of many of us who were sitting at home with their children, you know, jumping around in the background, trying to do virtual school while you're ordering groceries online and trying to watch something and trying to do a bunch of Zoom calls while you're juggling that with your partner or your spouse or
in your mother-in-law in your
house.
case?
In my mother-in-law's, cottage. That was my reality, but it's also the reality of many, many people out there. And so that is, for better or worse, what the book is about.
Let's do, the example in your book I love the most, and I'm going to set it up this way. I remember many years ago having a discussion with a newspaper reporter who boasted, you know what, I can get a piece in the paper without ever leaving the office. You know, I can do it all by just calling people, and no one can tell the difference whether I've left the office or not. David's Deli. Okay, tell the story about the guy where you found out that nugget of information, which you never would have found out had you just done it on a screen.
Yeah, this is a story from my first book, which was called Save the Deli.
But you refer to it in here.
Yeah, it came out in 2009. So this is 2007. You know, the way I did research for this book, which was about the demise of the Jewish delicatessen kind of as an institution all over the world. I basically got in my car here in Toronto, and I drove from Toronto to Los Angeles to Miami and back over a 2-month period. And I stopped at every deli I could find along the way, right? So I'm in San Francisco a month into this journey, many sandwiches and calories later. And I'm at David's Deli, which was near Union Square. It no longer exists. And David Applebaum, the owner, came out to talk to me. He was an older gentleman in his 80s. And I was perusing the menu while I was waiting for him to come out. And the menu was this incredible thing. I mean, these are restaurants with a lot of personality. And it had, each item was a description and a story and jokes. I mean, each one had a little paragraph. This menu was like 20 pages. And one of them was like, David's chopped liver. It's chopped 1,563 times. No, why is this number? It could be arbitrary. No one knows. Maybe David says it's his lucky number. And I said, it's great to talk to you. And I was interviewing him. And I said, I had this question. I was looking at the menu. What's this joke? And he rolls up his sleeve and shows me the number. That's the exact number that had been tattooed on his arm by the Nazis at Auschwitz. And a little smile creaks up on his old face. And it was just, stopped me in my tracks. And that's just one tiny piece of information that I found out because I went there. Now, I could have phoned David. We could have had a conversation. I would have gotten the history of the deli and the story of his life and whatever, but I wouldn't have gotten that. I wouldn't have seen his reaction and be able to describe it. I wouldn't have then be able to go into a deeper conversation with him, reading his body language. And these are all the things that in the real world, the analog world, we're able to do. They're the things that we missed when we were at home and we only had digital screens and devices and interactions, right? The reason why the Zoom cocktail party is the most awful, insipid thing ever. I do a thing at my talks now, with the book talks. I say, I'm gonna say 3 words to you. Zoom cocktail party. And everyone's like, ugh. I said, if I paid you $25, who would attend one for an hour? I'm like, one hand, the cheapskate goes up. $50. Oh, wait, like 4 hands go up. All right, $100. Then like every hand slowly goes up. And I was like, I'd do it for $100 and be like, oh, okay, I'd do that, right? But it's the bar is so low and the experience is so flat, right? It's like the screen. It's flat, it's textureless. And this is what I talk about when I say we have human needs and we are analog creatures, is that we can do all sorts of things online. We can live our entire lives, work, go to school, shop, entertain ourselves, pray, exercise, without ever leaving our house, through the internet, through different devices. This is the future that Mark Zuckerberg is promising us, the future of human connection. We're gonna strap the screen onto our eyes, and then, it'll be a Steve Paikin hologram, but you'll be a bear, or whatever the heck he's selling, right? And what are we missing? We're missing all the texture and richness and interactions that make the world what it is, that make human life what it is, that are our reference points for reality. And reality is still where the action is.
In your chapter on cities, you write, true innovation in a city can just as easily be analog, and it often is. Now, that goes against the grain of everything we're being told these days. Why do you say this?
Well, I thought about cities because this was right around the time that the Sidewalk Toronto thing was kind of at the peak of its debate.
This is the Google company that wanted to build something on the waterfront.
Downstairs in the downtown on the waterfront. And we had been told, the future of Toronto is innovation, it's gonna be a digital city, and this is the way we're gonna do it. And what did we actually see? And I know there's been wonderful books that you've had wonderful guests on who've talked about that. David Sax, who I interviewed in this, was a guest recently. In a city like this, and in other cities across Ontario and Canada and the world, what were the biggest innovations we saw? It wasn't QR codes at restaurants. It wasn't those contact tracing apps that never worked and the government paid, I don't know how much,
$50+ million bucks for them.
Some not insignificant amount of money. It wasn't drones or any of these wonderful promised things. What changed our life in a city like Toronto? It was when the pandemic hit and the city's like, oh gosh, all these people are stuck inside. What are we going to do? I guess we could close Lakeshore down on the weekends and people can bike and ride until, of course, they decided. No, we can't
even do that.
The Jays, how are people going to get to the Jays game? It was the thing that people had been begging for and lobbying for decades. Why can't we have patios in the city? Like when I go to Italy or Brazil or any other civilized place, and you can just put a sidewalk out, and they're like, I guess we could use these parking spots. And it's transformed the city. It's transformed a place like Yonge and Eglinton here. It's transformed down by Ossington, where I live. It's transformed small towns like Collingwood, and everywhere. It's all of a sudden brought life out. None of that required any new technology, but it was innovative, right? Putting bike lanes in a city is far more innovative and impactful than any experiments in self-driving cars that we've seen. And so we've surrendered the narrative. We've surrendered the word innovative to digital. Innovation, we think, has to be a gadget. It has to be an invention. But it's not. And if you think about it in the world of food, this is my favorite analogy, right? Technological innovation in baking was Wonder Bread.
Mr. Challah guy here.
Yeah, Mr. Challah guy, right? Pre-packaged, pre-sliced, preserved, infinite, fortified with nutrition Wonder Bread. And then someone came along 50 years ago and they're like, hey, what about sourdough? Let's bake sourdough again. And people are like, oh yeah, this is actually the best thing since sliced bread, a baguette, right? That can be innovative too. And so innovation is not this one-way street of just inventing the next best, greatest technology. It's sometimes taking old ideas and repurposing them, like pedestrian areas or bike lanes or restaurant patios or a baguette.
Did the challah turn out well, incidentally?
Yes, I got pretty good at baking.
You did, okay.
Yeah, but then I went back to Harvard Bakery as soon as I could because they just do a better job.
They do a better job, they do. Yeah. If you are pro-analog, does that mean you are anti-progress?
The Luddite brush is this sort of knee-jerk criticism that you're against progress, you're against innovation if you believe in these things. I completely reject that, right? What I'm arguing for is critical thinking around the future and around digital technology, because there's two certainties for this future, for any future that we're going into. One is that digital technology is going to continue to evolve and grow. There'll be new innovations in hardware and software and artificial intelligence and robotics and whatever else is coming down the pipes. And that's going to present new opportunities and new challenges. But the other truth is that we remain human. We are analog creatures. And as long as we are these flesh and blood creatures walking on this earth and in this city and in this province, our human needs are still going to be central.
So how do we build that? What goes into an analog future?
Well, when it gets back to that question of critical thinking. It's looking at a technology and examining it and saying, is this going to make my life better? Does this elevate my experience as a human, right? Does this make it more productive or more meaningful to work? Does this help me or my children learn? Does this connect me more to other people, or does it drive a wedge between us? And so that critical thinking is the thing that led Toronto and the waterfront to say, all right, you know what, the Sidewalk Labs thing,
not for us.
Not for us, right? If you could find me one person in this province who's going to say, you know what, the future of Ontario schooling is online education. Like, I will buy the tar, I will buy the feathers, and I will drive them out of town.
That's an ironic point for you to be making at this place, because of course we've been doing digital education here. We're a huge partner of the Ontario government. I say that in the interest of full disclosure, but
But it's not, you're not saying we're going to replace schools.
Correct.
Right? We're going to create the videos, we're going to create the things, but the core of that thing is still the school. And I think if you're going to find anyone that argues against that, and they're going to say, no, this is progress, I don't think anybody, having gone through the experience of the past couple of years, will take up that argument.
Agreed. This was a book that needed to be written, and I'm really glad that you wrote it, because it's a point that surely needs to be made. So thank you.
Steve.
The future is analog, so says David Sax. If you don't believe it, read his book, How to Create a More Human World. David, as always, thanks for coming in.
A pleasure.
For more than 10 months now, Ukraine has been fending off Russia's invasion of its territory. Rajan Menon is director of the Grand Strategy Program at the think tank Defense Priorities and a non-resident scholar in the Russia and Eurasia program at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. He's been tracking the conflict closely, and he joins us now from Ukraine's capital city in Kyiv. And I want to thank you very much for taking time away from whatever it is you're normally doing right now, Mr. Menon, to join us. And to that end, let's ask our control room to put a map up of Ukraine at the moment, because this will show a bit of your journey. There's Kyiv right in the middle of Ukraine, Lviv in the west, the two controversial regions in the east, which Russia has illegally tried to annex, Kherson, which we've heard so much about on the Black Sea on the south, and Kharkiv as well, just east of where you are right now. Now, normally you live on the northeastern part of the United States. How difficult was it for you to get into Kyiv?
Well, the first thing to understand, Steve, is that the airspace in Ukraine is closed to commercial aircraft. So it's open only to military aircraft, VIPs, and so on, which means that you fly into Warsaw, and then you drive to Lviv, the city you just mentioned in western Ukraine. That's about a 6-hour drive, depending on the conditions related to border crossings. You then have to stop there because there is a curfew that kicks in about 10 o'clock at night. No cars are allowed on the street. You resume your journey from Lviv to the capital, which is Kyiv, That's about another 7 hours. So we're talking give or take 14 hours, but it could be much longer depending on what the conditions are like at the border, especially going back out to Poland. There's a lot of cigarettes smuggling. Cigarettes are much cheaper in Ukraine than in Poland, and so trucks are stopped and inspected. I once saw a line of trucks headed west, standing at the border that was about 20 miles long. So Ukraine is a big country, and in wartime, you've got to take your time getting there.
Well, that was going to be my follow-up question. I trust and I hope that you didn't see anything too militarily scary on the way to the capital?
Not on the way to the capital. As you get closer to the capital, there are military checkpoints. An American or Canadian passport will do wonders, and you're generally waved through. Kyiv itself, Steve, is very well protected. Today, we had an air alert. There were actually more alerts when I was here in August, and there's been for the past several days an eerie lull. People have been wondering when the next wave would be. So today, the Russians fired 80 rockets and did 80 rockets and airstrikes at Ukraine. None of them got through to Kyiv, but we were herded into the, shall we say, the bunker of this hotel for the longest time I've spent in it. So much so that I ultimately decided to leave because I had an appointment. So there was a very serious red alert in Kyiv, but they hit a number of other cities, which I'll be glad to mention later if you'd like.
Well, indeed. Why don't you pick up the story there? I know you have been to other cities in Ukraine. Have any of them been hit during your time there?
Yeah. Yes, I have been to Kryvyi Rih, which is in the south, which happens to be the home of the president, Vladimir Zelensky. It's a Russian-speaking industrial city. It was hit today. It was hit when I was here last time. I was in Nikopol on the Dnieper River, across the river from the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, which you may have heard of. It's the largest one in Europe. That was hit today. I was in Odessa, where I went from Kherson. It's to the east of Kherson. It's a big port on the Black Sea. And I told one of your producers earlier, Preeti, that it looked like the war had never touched Odessa. But lo and behold, today they hit it, and Odessa is without water. So much for the tranquility of Odessa. And there have been other cities that have been hit as well. So today was a big day, and they did it because there was an attack on a Russian airbase in the interior of Russia, and the Russians believed that the Ukrainians did it, and this was payback. But the Russians don't need any excuse to strike Ukraine. They've been doing it with high intensity for quite a while now.
Indeed. How long have you been in the country, all told, so far?
This, I believe, is my 8th day in Ukraine, about the same time I spent last time.
Okay, so
I have
8
a day
days.
job.
Yeah, 8 days is certainly long enough to get a sense about how people are coping with what clearly has been crazy, disruptive military adventurism over the last 10 months. How's it going?
Yes. You would think that all of this bombing and being under the constant pressure of being attacked would sap the willpower of people. But I'll just give you a human interest story. When I got out of the hotel today to go to my meeting in a restaurant, against the advice, I will add, of the hotel staff, I got into an Uber and I said to the person, well, it's good to see you out and about. Aren't you worried about the air raids? And he said to me in Russian, well, what will happen will happen. I have to do my job. And that is important to realize because people cannot put their lives on hold and be in a state of constant stress for months on end. They have to learn to function. And the way they do it is to go about their jobs as best they can, live their lives as best they can. And if anything, the intensity of the Russian attacks has increased Ukrainian willpower. Somebody told me the other day that donations to the Ukrainian army have skyrocketed even further after the attacks became as intensive as they have.
But do you see military-age men at all leading sort of normal lives, or is everybody off fighting?
Well, there are lots of military-age men you see around, but they may have deferments for one reason or the other. But the Ukrainian army has had no difficulty eliciting volunteers. If anything, so many people are volunteering that they have to turn people back because they don't have the basic skills that people need. So I don't think there's a shortage of people willing to fight and die. That is not a problem. The bigger problem, as I see it, if I may just briefly say so, is the havoc that the Russian attacks have played with the Ukrainian economy, because what they're trying to do is to take down the electrical grid. And think of the electrical grid as the central nervous system of our body. Without it, plumbing, heating, transportation, the railway system, nothing can work. And so that is the name of the game for the Russians at the moment. And that is going to be very, very difficult to deal with in the winter. So, for example, think of a city like Kyiv, which has 3 million people. The electricity goes off, so do water pumping stations, and you can make heat and light, but you can't make water. And if you run out of water, the sewage backs up, people cannot wash themselves with the dishes. You have a public health crisis in the making, and that is why the mayor of Kyiv, Mr. Klitschko, said not long ago that it may well be that they will have to think about evacuating big cities like Kyiv, and that would be a humanitarian catastrophe.
Let me get your sense of this. We know that people in Ukraine speak both Ukrainian and Russian, and I wonder whether you have seen any examples of, for example, people who are Russian speakers being discriminated against because of that, or conversely, maybe in the eastern part of the country, you see people who speak Ukrainian and the Russian-speaking people give them a hard time. How much of that do you see?
Well, this is a very good question. So one of the things I try to address when I speak to American audiences, or in this case, Canadian audiences, is there is at one level an east-west difference in Ukraine, because when you go east beyond the Dnieper River into the area called the Donbass, highly industrialized, kind of Sovietized area, there is a very large proportion of ethnic Russians and or Ukrainians whose language is Russian. But one has to understand that those differences have been really blurred now, and there is a Ukrainian nationalism that transcends linguistic and ethnic differences. So to give you a clear example, I was in Kherson. Pretty much every one of the soldiers I spoke to were Russian speakers. And believe me, there was no love lost between them and Mr. Putin. So I think the idea that somehow Russian speakers or ethnic Russians in Ukraine are necessarily well disposed toward Russia and have some support for this war is wrong. Another thing to bear in mind, it is the East and the South, the so-called Russophone part of Ukraine, if you will, that has suffered the most. The poster child, if you will, for this is Mariupol, the city of Mariupol in the east on the Sea of Azov. It is the latter-day Guernica, and I speak of the Spanish city that was destroyed by air attack in the 1930s, and there was a famous painting, as you know, done by Picasso of that.
Yes, indeed. Talk to me about burden sharing. I read your piece that you wrote in which you really laid it out. I know, for example, the Canadian government thinks it's doing a great job contributing to the efforts of the Ukrainian government. But then, as you point out, pretty much 80% of everything over there is being done by the Americans. How much burden sharing is actually happening?
So 80% of the armaments are in dollar value American armaments. And that is not surprising because the United States has the largest arsenal in the world. And so if Ukraine needs a lot of weaponry, it's not surprising the U.S. would be the main provider. What I find, though, not as congenial as an American, shall I say, is if you look at the economic numbers, there too, the overwhelming majority, but not quite 80%, is American assistance. And so I would like to see a division of labor where the United States provides the bulk of military aid, but the Europeans step up and give more. If you look at it as a percentage of GDP, for example, Germany, the richest country in Europe, ranks way below the United States and way below a number of European countries, and including Canada, less than Canada as well. So surely a country like Germany can give more. And I say this because as things get difficult economically, in Europe they already are, in the US I think they're going to get worse, there will be a discussion about keeping Ukraine funded. Its needs are vast, and there will be a question about who gives what, when, where, and how.
The Prime Minister of Finland recently said that Europe is, quote, not strong enough to stand up to Russia's invasion of Ukraine without American support. Do you agree with that?
Well, it isn't now because it doesn't have the material wherewithal, that is the military oomph, if you will. And to acquire that, you need investment in defense budgets and military technologies. My own view has been that the dependence of Europe on the United States made perfect sense for much of the Cold War. But if you look at the GDP of the European Union combined, it's about the size of the United States. And as you well know, Europe has some of the most developed and technologically advanced economies in the world. So if they cannot do without the United States, it is not for want of means, it is for want of will. So I personally would like to see a Europe that does much more for its own defense, because I see no reason why it cannot do so. As a European, I wouldn't want to be utterly dependent on the United States to the degree that Europe is in. Now, that is a choice for Europeans to make, but as an American, I would like to see a different kind of division of labor when it comes to defense, with Europe being more defense autonomous, if you will. Now, that's not a view that every American holds, but it is the view that I happen to hold.
Mm-hmm. Now, does the average Ukrainian have a good sense about which countries have contributed what to their efforts?
I think there's an enormous gratitude toward all countries. And when I say some countries have contributed less, I don't mean to knock any country, because Ukrainians will tell you that aid from the West is highly appreciated and highly important. But I think they have a sense that this is largely speaking on the military front, the economic front, and political front, for better or for worse, whether you agree or not, an American show. That is to say, they take their cues largely from the United States. They view Canada, Poland, and the three Baltic countries, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, and Britain, as probably their strongest allies in the Euro-Atlantic alliance.
And just finally, again, in your conversations with the average Ukrainian person, how confident are they that they will, at the end of the day, prevail?
I asked this question to about 25 people since I've been here, and I get two responses. The harder the Russians hit us, the higher our morale will become, and we will win. It may take time, but we're prepared to go all the way to the end. And so I don't see any flagging of morale. If anything, I would say, since I was back here in August, morale is stronger among the general population and among the soldiers that I've fought with, and they have undergone the soldiers have undergone enormous difficulties.
Rajan Menon from Defense Priorities, it's awfully good of you to spare some time for us during your trip to Ukraine, and thank you for your sense of what's happening there on the ground these days. We're grateful.
Thank you, Steve. Be well.
And that is the agenda for Thursday, December 8th, 2022. Tomorrow, J.N. Jagannathan takes a look at the simmering discontent in China prompted by strict COVID restrictions. I'm Steve Paikin. Thanks for watching TVO, for joining us online at TVO.org, and J.N. will see you here tomorrow.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.